We are Outside the Pod, a Miami Dolphins podcast. Here are your outsiders, Danny D and Jules, the ref.
Yeah, no. I got to work on it too. But... All right. So, what is it? Episode 6. And we're doing the second quarter of the Miami Dolphins schedule this episode. So, to summarize, it's going to be the Panthers, Chargers, Browns, Falcons. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I hope everybody's having a good Father's Day weekend. I'm going to have to call my dad here pretty soon, make sure he's doing well. Wish him a happy Father's Day. By the time this drops still, I'll probably dropping this on Monday. I hope you guys had a great holiday weekend, and happy Father's Day to my bro, Jules.
Thanks,
What's up, man?
Thank you, man.
What do you got planned?
Playing?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I ain't got nothing. To me, it's like any other day, man. I got to call my pops, but other than that, just relaxing with the fam and being with them and just spending time with them. That's all I got to do, man. I'm happy.
You're not going to barbecue, are you?
Nah, I don't think so.
I hope somebody does carne asada for you,
Oh, man. No, well, you know what happens, though, is that I can't eat anyone else's carne asada. It never lives up. Never lives up.
Not even every time. Canelos or something?
My friends are going to kill me because I've been to a couple of friends' houses and carne asada and shit, and it just never lives up to the one I can make.
Yeah, they're going to the wrong meat market, probably. I don't know. Is it the wrong cut?
Maybe technique. I think it's more technique, but
yeah.
Anyways, no. The last one I went to was good. Last one, I gotta say, the last one I went to was good. But in most of the time, it happens when we go out to a friend's house, have some cookout or whatever. They got the barbecue going or whatever, and then the next weekend I gotta cook it again. I gotta cook myself because it didn't satisfy me. I gotta go back to the grill and do some of my own stuff. And my wife too. My wife is like, hey, do that and do it for me. Can you? I'll help you.
Yeah, we got. You know what? Just so the audience knows, our listeners. So carne asada, if you don't know, and most of you probably do, everybody has some Latin friends, Latino friends, some Mexican friends, and they'd grill out some carne asada. It's pretty basic grilled steak, you know what I mean? But it's a specific cut and it's a specific technique. And my brother Jules does a very good carne asada. And of course, all the toppings that go with it, the fresh tortillas, my mom's refried beans, everything that goes with it is freaking awesome. But anyway, let's get into some Miami Dolphins talk. Again, happy Father's Day to all. But just wanted to get some current events real quick. The change the culture talk. I hope it's happening, but we talked about it a couple of episodes ago, where when you lose a team, it's hard to get it back. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but if you lost the team's respect, if you lost the ability to get in their psyche and make them do things that they don't want to do and be happy about it, you might not be able to get that back. So if he's lost it so far, especially with the veterans that have been there since he started there, they already know the truth about Mike McDaniels. I'm not sure he could change the culture. Maybe a little bit. And hopefully they can. I mean, I'm right there hoping with everybody else that, Tua's different mentality, that Mike McDaniel's different mentality, that some of the guys that have been there for a while, they truly are stopping and thinking about, how do we win more games? How do we get to the promised land? How do we get to the AFC championship? And really focus on that. Maybe they could change the culture. But it's so much work. It's going to take so much work from each and one of those guys. And the younger guys are just going to have to follow. But they have to step it up. So we're talking about, Chubb. We're talking about Tua. We're talking about Tyreek Hill. We're talking about Jalen Waddle. All those guys, Austin Jackson. Those are the ones that have to be the ones that change the culture with Mike McDaniel. If they can't, and if they do anything that undermines Mike McDaniel, which happened a lot the last 2 years, and that's why we're in this problem, it's not going to work, bro. The culture is going to be the same, and as soon as they meet that first little dose of adversity, it's gonna crumble, and then they're going to be a bad team. So it's going to take some work. And yeah, I mean, I hope they can do it. Like I said, it's hard, but I hope they can do it.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Of course, it's something that is needed. You could tell from last year that some of the leadership, maybe some of the motivation wasn't there. People not giving 100%. You could see that, especially later in the season, once Tua got hurt. I mean that doesn't help, right? I mean that doesn't help when you don't have your stars. And when that happens, that's on the coach, man, to keep the motivation going, to keep the energy. And so I'm glad that he's saying it, although you've been now there a few years, and usually you see something like that from a new coach. You want to change the culture, you want to change blah, blah, blah. But maybe you created some of that. I don't want, I keep being the pessimist, and I hate that from myself, because but in the past, I try to be optimistic and everything, and then you get disappointed all the time, and that kind of sucks. And yeah, we made it to the playoffs a couple of times. Didn't do it last year, so you could see that decline, especially when Tua's hurt. Obviously, the team doesn't perform the same. You want the culture change, absolutely, because you don't want to see what happened last year happen again. If you got one of your stars going down, somebody else has to step up. The coach has to keep the motivation, keep the energy going, and that's you, McDaniel. That's you're the leader of that team, right? And sure, there's a couple of leadership qualities as far as players are concerned, but I mean, you are the man. You're the one that needs to keep that motivation and energy from that team. And I hope so too. I'm trying really hard to stay optimistic. I'm hoping that yes, they change the culture, they get back to the promised land again, and hopefully keep Tua healthy, because that's going to be a big thing, right? It's really hard to keep the energy and motivation when somebody's hurt. Right now, you see them out there having fun, and that's great. Slip and slide, paintball, everything. I was kidding on X the other day that slip and slide. Well, my son can do slip and slide. Why don't you do it on an ice rink? That's where we struggle, right? When it's cold and slippery and shit like that. So, yeah. And I guess it's part of the NFL now. The Ravens were doing slip and slide as well. I'm sure other teams are going to try it now. But what happens, and here's the question for you, Dan. Daddy boy, daddy, my brother. Once, yes, culture change. What happens in week number 3 or whatever, playing the Bills, or later on we're playing the Chargers, and then we're losing. We're like 3-5 at that point. What happens when adversity hits? Yeah, right now it's all good, right? Everyone's kind of healthy. You're looking forward to the season. You're talking about culture change, and everybody's saying, yeah, dude, we're doing it. But then that first, part of adversity, and it's going to happen, right? We're going to lose a couple in a row. A guy's going to go down with injury. How do you pick yourself up from that? And that right there is where you're going to see culture change in action. Because if the culture did indeed change, we are going to be able to play through those things, and the stronger teams, the playoff caliber teams, the ones that are there at the end, are going to be able to play through that kind of shit. And that's where we're going to say, okay, then it actually did happen. Or if it doesn't, if they can't get through that kind of stuff, then they're going to start pointing fingers, and that's when it gets really ugly, man. And we've already seen like a little bit of examples of that with Tyreek and Jalen Ramsey leaving, and and if this starts happening, then now we have bigger questions. We have bigger questions about the coach, the front office. It can get ugly, man. And again, that's me being the pessimist, but I just hope you're right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. To answer your question real quick, yeah, once they hit that real hard spot where, I mean, it could be early as the first quarter of the schedule, right? When you got the Patriots and the Bills specifically, who, the Bills could punch us in the gut real bad and just take us out, like terrible, and then the Patriots could also beat us. I mean, they're coming in, refreshed. They're coming in with new coach. So that adversity could be very soon in the season.
Right. It could be right off the gate, right? It could be right off the gate. The Colts are going to be like they just said, right? We were talking about this one last week, that Irsay, ceremony or whatever they're going to have. They're going to put, now they said just today, he's going to be in the Ring of Honor. I think Peyton Manning's going to be there. All kinds of energy in that stadium, man. It doesn't bode well for us. They're going to be coming after us, bro.
Yeah,
That's some
it's
scary
probably going to be packed. Everybody in their first game of the season, everybody's going to be motivated. All the fans are going to be there loud with Peyton Manning, who's, obviously a Colts legend. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, go ahead.
And then after that, the Bills and Patriots, out of the gates, that's going to be a real test for us, for real.
Yeah. And I mean, I hope it's not a front, right? You see the quote from the Mike McDaniel's presser a couple days ago, right? Where they ask him about Jalen Ramsey, and he's just, he obviously doesn't want to hear it. I mean, I get that part. Sorry, I'm shaking my camera here. Nobody wants to, answer the questions of somebody that doesn't want to play for the team anymore. I'm over it. Right. And I'm sure he's the head coach. So he's freaking way more over it than I am. But he said, when they asked him about Jalen Ramsey, I don't give a shit how I feel. And I just want to know how you feel about Mike McDaniel's feelings that he doesn't give a shit how he feels. Is that a front? Did he mean I don't give a shit about Jalen Ramsey? I think that would have, I don't know. What do you think? Is that a front? Did he try to cover the words, I don't give a shit about Jalen Ramsey? He could go, F himself, or what do you think?
Maybe a Freudian slip. I don't know. The only person that knows that is Mike McDaniel, right? But, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. I think that he's definitely 100% has feelings about this. 100%. And he's not going to say it publicly. He's not going to say it, right? He's trying to keep a certain level of cool.
As he should.
Right. Yeah. Totally not against that at all. I think that's the right move, is to not say shit about your players that want to leave. I'm sure that maybe in the future, once he's gone, and maybe there'll be some conversations about that. But right now, I think he does have the feelings, and what he's saying is, I don't give a shit what I think right now. It shouldn't be a thing that we're talking about. So he definitely has feelings. He's just saying, I don't give a shit about how I feel. It's saying, well, I don't want to talk about this shit right now, because that's not what's important. What's important is how I'm going to build this fucking secondary and this offensive line.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm hoping that's what I'm saying with front. I'm hoping that's exactly how he feels, right? That he is no longer thinking about Jalen Ramsey, which I think is probably impossible. But either way, get it out of your system. Jonnu Smith, get him out of your system. And let's work with what we got. And let's try to get every single ounce of play out of all these NFL athletes. At the end of the day, the way I always saw it is that these are all NFL athletes. And I feel like every NFL athlete could do something in the league, could perform in the league, right? Or else let them go. Get yourself another one. So, yeah. So let's hope it's not a front. Let's hope that he's really cutting ties with this situation emotionally, and he's ready to move forward. And that's what I'm hoping he meant with that. And moving on to the schedule talk. So week 5, October 5th, at Carolina against the Panthers. Unproven Bryce Young with T-Mac McMillan, which came out of the college that we kind of follow out in Arizona. I grew up following that team. So T-Mac, we're a little biased, but at the same time, T-Mac, I think, has a lot of good tools. Big receiver he's not the fastest. I think everybody's saying that, right? Everybody in the media is saying, hey, you know what? He's a little slower, doesn't run routes great, but he's very shifty. He's good after the catch. He gets high pointed, very nice. He could high point the football, grab it with his hands. Almost every catch he makes, he puts his big old paws on it, his big old Samoan paws on that football. I mean, he would have paired great with Tua. Him, Noah, and Tua, just like a Samoan team, it would have been great. But anyway, high pointing the ball is his cup of tea. Other thing that's gonna be a little dangerous. Not only is T-Mac too big for our cornerbacks, but they also have Adam Thielen, and they picked up Hunter Renfrow in free agency as well. These guys are elite route runners, and I think they're going to move defenses away from T-Mac or vice versa, and it could be dangerous. If Bryce Young can make a few throws, they could score some points, and so that's where it's gonna be, right? We got to score more than that to be, as dumb as that sounds. I think head to head. It's not as easy as it looks or as it was. And I think that we definitely can't, we can't let our guard down. We got to go in there and play. I just want to throw one thing out there too, before I let you talk a little bit. I've already talked enough, is Robert Hunt would have been great with Noah. So Noah and Robert Hunt in the middle would have been outstanding. And I'm just still pissed off that Robert Hunt's with the Carolina Panthers. Go ahead. I'm moving it over to you.
Well, I'll start with how you ended, right? Robert Hunt. Yeah, that's one of our guys, right? One of our man, that almost touchdown that got called back. I mean, what an effort, right? I mean, man, that ref kind of, I think he wanted to give it to them, you know what I mean? Because of that effort, but the rules and rules, right? So yeah, that's our boy Robert Hunt over there. Yeah, still kind of pissed about that. We could use him, right? We could use him. But yeah, as far as the Panthers, man, I think this is a winnable game. And again, and I don't know if I said this last time, but I'm going into this season, and this is me trying to be optimistic again, like I said, is assuming, these are a lot of assumptions too, right? That assuming that we're going to get back to like 2023 offensive form. If we get the 2023 offense out there, I think this is definitely a winnable game. If we don't, then we might struggle a little bit here. If you look at all these 3 games just in general, 3 of these are on the road, kind of pesky in their way. These games that we usually find a way to lose, so annoying sometimes that, these are the games that at the end of the year, we're like, man, we lost that one by a point or the field goal last second, whatever. These 4 right here feel like that. Don't you think? All 4 of these games. And with the Panthers, I think I still have questions about their running game. I don't know. I haven't watched how they're doing with the running game, but I think that's something that they're probably going to want to do is run the football at our defensive line, try to limit the impact that we have, because I think attacking Bryce Young is the thing to do, right? I think we want him to make a mistake. We want to have Bryce Young beat us, and so that I think is the game plan for us. But as you said, he's got some weapons. So if Bryce Young takes that step up as a quarterback and has grown a little bit more this year, then maybe, they'll have a shot at. But I think in general, I think we're going to do well against Bryce Young. I think we're going to disrupt the offensive line, push the line, and get to Bryce Young, get him to make a mistake or two. And I think that's how we're going to win the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. It's the defensive line is definitely going to take us to, it's going to save us from a lot of heartache from that comes probably from the secondary. So I think we could get to Bryce Young. We could rattle him a little bit and hopefully make some mistakes, get some turnovers out of it, and win this game. So yeah, definitely a winnable game. I'm just mostly talking about stuff that we need to watch for, stuff that we need to be wary of when it comes down to some of their offensive weapons that they got right now with the addition of T-Mac. So for week 6,
shout out to T-Mac.
Yeah, shout out to T-Mac for sure. Yeah, bear down. For week 6. The Chargers in Miami. It's going to be October 12th. There's kind of a Herbert-Tua rivalry since they both got drafted. We passed on Herbert and got Tua. And, at this point, I was telling Jules before, is at this point, I don't really feel like it was such a, there's no real hard line between Herbert and Tua. They're interchangeable, in my opinion, as far as success, right? Not so much, they're different quarterbacks for sure. But they're interchangeable as far as, how their career has kind of moved in the same direction, kind of, right? But, there is that rivalry. I think the Chargers improved a little bit more than the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins, at the end of the day, kind of either stayed similar to what they were last season. But the Chargers may have improved just a little bit and may have the upper hand as far as, with Jim Harbaugh as a head coach. He's done nothing but proving that he could coach a team. And so that scares me as far as this rivalry goes, not only between Tua and Herbert, but also later down the line, when it comes down to playoff spots, as the Chargers are going to be probably right there trying to take one as well. So, they got Khalil Mack, Derwin James, Tui, I'm not going to say his last name. And so they got a solid defense, some good pieces there. I know the Chargers probably don't like playing in Miami, but at the same time, I think this is gonna be a hard one for the Dolphins, and they need to come out slinging. So the one last thing that I want to touch on too is somebody that we passed on in the draft that could have been great for the team, right? Just as a fan, and and we could have used another receiver. That's obviously not something that we have in abundance of. We got some good receivers, but we also, the depth is kind of Oronde Gadsden Jr. Who does not want another OG in the team? I was just, me and Jules were watching the draft, and I'm texting him screaming, Oronde's still there, man. Oronde's still there. Almost every round, Oronde's still there. Grab him. And Chargers took him, man. And that's not the only player. There's another one that maybe we'll talk about at some other time. But there was two with Dolphin lineage that should be in our team right now. Anyway, blabbing too much. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. That was disappointing. And you're right. As a fan, as a fan of a team with such rich history and tradition and things like that, why wouldn't you draft a guy like Oronde Gadsden Jr., man? That was, he had so many highlights, so many wonderful moments for us as fans when we were, growing up watching this team. He was, so good at getting that ball wherever wherever, if it was thrown in the vicinity, he's going to go out there and get it, man. He's one of those guys that chip on his shoulder. Wasn't, I don't think he was drafted, right? Or wasn't he in
he came you know what, I'm not gonna lie, I want to say he came from like the Canadian League or freaking something crazy like that. Really? I don't know if you want to look it up right now.
Man,
go ahead and talk, and I'll look it up while you talk your rest of your points here.
Yeah, so just some fan service. That's what I was thinking during the draft. But now you look at the tight end room and you're like, man, we could use this guy. This guy is going to be a tight end. He's not going to be a receiver for the Chargers, I don't think. But
okay.
Yeah, he's coming in as a tight end. So now with the Jonnu Smith situation, we could be using him right now. As far as hands are concerned, he'd probably be starting because all we got is blockers right now. That's all we got. And I know in 2023, and we talked about this last week, we talked about how we didn't even use a tight end to catch the ball. We used them to block the whole time, right? Once in a while, they got they threw him a freaking bone. But mostly, yeah, man, they weren't thrown to the tight end. But now they were kind of thrown to the tight end. As evidenced by last year, maybe we could use somebody like Oronde Gadsden. But anyways, enough of that rant. This is one of those games that I feel like I'm glad out of these 4 games that we have in this second quarter. I'm glad that one's at home. That's the one that's at home, and the other 3 are on the road, right? But this one, I'm glad that's at home because this is a tough game. This is a tough game, and I'm glad it's a 1 p.m. start too because we're gonna need any advantage we can get. And the Miami Heat, not talking about basketball, but the Miami Heat at Hard Rock is probably going to be our friend that day, right? So I'm hoping that we can sneak a win out of this one. Again, with all the assumptions that our offense is running just as we did in 2023, I want that offense back, man. I want it back. And hopefully, we can get a win here because this is going to be a tough one. John Harbaugh is going to bring him prepared to play. I'm sorry, Jim Harbaugh. I always get my Harbaughs mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to come after Tua. That's one thing that they do well with Mac and James. And that's a pretty good defense. It's a very, very well-balanced team, I think. And they're going to play us really tough, right? So out of these 4 games, I think this is the toughest one. But I think this is going to be a really good game. I think this is probably one of those games playing in a lot of the regions in the US because it's going to be a really good game, man. If it was later in the season, maybe week 13, 14, probably playoff implication sort of thing. I mean, if we're healthy and playing well, of course. But yeah, I'm excited for this one matchup. I'm excited for this. I think it's going to be a really good game, honestly.
Yeah, real quick before we move on to the next week against the Browns. So Orlando Gaston was actually selected. He was actually unsigned a rookie to the Dallas Cowboys. And then he was kind of like practice squad guy, went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then ended up in Germany playing football. Wow. So he played in, after all that time, played in, Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers, went to Germany, Frankfurt, whatever the team, Dragons, some crap. And then the Miami Dolphins got him after that. And look what a star, he arose for us. I couldn't be happier with that. I mean, you grabbing this guy out of the street basically, and right. he was a monster for us. And that's the thing. It's like you never know. Kind of like Cameron Wake, right? You kind of just grab dudes out of the street, that work themselves up to the NFL, and they're just beast.
So I did remember that he was undrafted. I just didn't remember the whole trajectory to get to the Dolphins, but I do remember he was undrafted.
Yeah, awesome. So, yeah, the next game against the Browns, the shambles of quarterbacks that they got over there with the Browns. One thing that I definitely want to talk about is that I hope we're not biting ourselves in the ass later on if Shedeur Sanders ends up being a star, because that was another thing that me and Jules were talking about during the draft. Is like Shedeur Sanders is still on the board. Like, and what round was he picked? 5th?
I think it was the 5th, yeah. And we had already picked in the 5th, I think, when he went. I got to check that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We passed on him several times, so he better not be a star, especially because, I don't know. Especially because we were, Tua, again, bro, I like you. But, there's some concerns about your health and stuff like that, right? So, I don't want to wait another 10 years to win a playoff game or 20, and it seemed like an easy grab there. I know I've watched Deion Sanders for a long time. His kids may be a little bit out there, right? Just like he was. They may have a little bit of, they feel themselves, they're Sanders. They're prime. And but at the same time, I know that Deion Sanders has that like dog, that like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dan Marino dog. And he just wouldn't allow people to beat him. And I feel like his kids may have some of that. And I was just going off of that risk. I would have rolled the dice on that. I would have said, screw it. 4th round, 5th round, just grab him. Screw it. And I know Tua might have gotten in his fields, but I swear, are we gonna win a Super Bowl? I mean, the odds are against us, and we're probably looking for another quarterback next year, anyways. And so I would have rolled that dice, bro. I would have. And then he's throwing some pretty good looking balls out there in minicamp. I get it, minicamp, no pads, nobody's rushing them. He's throwing, everybody looks good. I get it, everybody looks good,
except Zach Wilson.
But he better suck. I used to tell Jules during the draft. Orlando better suck.
Mason Taylor.
Sanders better suck. Jason Taylor's kid better suck. Because we passed on all of them. Anyway, yeah, the Browns, this is a winnable game for sure. Myles Garrett was probably really our only problem in that team. But definitely we got a couple other guys that we could use in the team that are now with the Browns. Nick Needham, Jerome Baker. Let's not make this too long. Jules, what you got on?
I think we're already there, right? We're already too long. Who gives a fuck? It's actually a good show, man. It's a good show today. Yeah. I like it. I'm fired up.
It's good conversation.
This is me fired up. Whatever's that. Yeah, man. Shedeur Sanders. I mean, you talked about Rondé and Mason Taylor being good and stuff like that. Jordan Phillips. We picked Jordan Phillips right before the Browns picked Shedeur Sanders.
That's what it was, yeah.
And then we picked twice after in that 5th round. So we had 3 picks, and we sandwiched Shedeur Sanders with Jordan Phillips and Jason Marshall Jr. But man, you're right.
We could have had Sanders and Jordan Phillips anyways, is what you're saying.
Yeah, probably. We wouldn't have had maybe one of these other secondary guys, right? Like Jason Marshall Jr., Dante Trader, because we would have used one of those picks for Shedeur. But again, we don't know if these guys are going to pan out. They don't come from the pedigree that this guy's coming from.
Right.
So, yeah.
Hey, we could have put him at cornerback. Maybe we put him at cornerback.
Right. He's got it in his blood, right? I mean, he's doing a pick 6, and I don't know. And, Berman is going prime prime time. Maybe he's prime time junior. I don't know. But yeah, I totally agree. You do in the 5th round take a chance on this guy for sure. For damn sure you do. And we're taking a chance on Queen Ewers. Maybe he is that guy later on, but in the 7th round. But I don't think so, man. Shador in the 5th round, I think made sense, and I know we chatted about it and everything, and that would have made sense to me. I wouldn't have been angry at all about a pick like that, and he might not pan out or whatever, but it's just the 5th round pick. Like, why wouldn't you take a chance on that? And yeah, but I think what, Mike McDaniel, I don't think wants a personality like that.
Yeah.
On the team, I don't think he does.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean,
and he doesn't want Deion Sanders on the sidelines. You know what I mean? Taken away from his own swag or whatever that is, dude. There's something there. And maybe Chris Greer agrees with that. Like, he doesn't want that kind of distraction or whatever or animosity between McDaniel and Deion and Shador. I mean, but again, does that point toward the leadership of McDaniel? Is he the coach that you can bring somebody like that, that's so polarizing, that's somewhat controversial, that is vocal, and mesh well with the head coach, right? So again, we're talking about maybe a lack of McDaniel's leadership and authority that maybe scares Greer, scares McDaniel in having that personality in there with him in that same building. I don't know, man. So anyways, back to the game. One guy in there, Myles Garrett, man. That's one guy. And you see him on tape right now in mini camp. He's a freaking monster, man. A guy like that shouldn't be that athletic, that big. But man, he's good. He's awesome. He's an awesome player. He's one of my favorites that's out, not on the Dolphins, right? But he's one of those guys that you just can't help but like as a player and everything. But yeah, I think this is a winnable game. This is a game we easily won last year as well, even without Tua. If Tua's there, man, I don't think we have a problem in this game at all. Honestly, we shouldn't.
Right.
In all honesty, we shouldn't have any problems beating the Browns in Cleveland.
Right. But yeah, just touch on Myles Garrett. Yeah, he's probably one, if not the best defensive player right now. Absolute freak. As a matter of fact, I'm calling the NFL, ban him from the NFL. I don't think that superhumans should be allowed in a regular human league. So, yeah, I'm calling it NFL. They should have their own league, bro. They should have their own league.
Should have their own league.
Superhuman league. Yeah, he's one of those guys. So, yeah. Anyway, the last game of the second quarter is against the Atlanta Falcons, October 20th. Michael Penix Jr. Is probably going to be the quarterback. I don't know the situation with Kirk Cousins. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. I know that he doesn't really want to be a backup. He probably doesn't really want to be in Atlanta anymore. I'm not sure. But either way, it doesn't look like Kirk Cousins is the guy. It looks like Michael Penix Jr. is, with Kyle Pitts as his main weapon, which could be dangerous if he lives up to what he initially was, kind of rated, when he come out of the draft. And he's got all the tools for sure. The dude's, just a monster of a tight end, a receiving tight end at least. And he could get some damage. He could do some damage to us, especially with the secondary that we got. Penix, though, doesn't look that comfortable in the pocket with Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, if healthy, and Chubb. We're looking to just kind of really mix his stuff up and just, put the fear of God in him. You know what I mean? Let's just do it. And this is a very winnable game, just like the Browns, if not easier than the Browns. Honestly, this game should be won. But how do you feel about Falcons?
Not as confident as you. I think it's not as easy as the Browns. I don't think it's easy at all, to be honest. I think that I really like Bijan Robinson, and he's a local kid out here from Arizona. He went to South Point High School. Shout out to the Lancers. But man, I think this guy is ready to break out. He did awesome last year. 4.8 yards per carry. The dude is an awesome running back, dude. he's an awesome weapon. I feel like he's going to have a big year. And, that does scare me a little bit, especially because they're going to run the ball a lot. Penix is still kind of growing into the position. And I think they're going to try to run the ball to kind of limit the impact of the defensive line for sure. And Bijan Robinson can do that. And, I think we can still win the game. I think on paper, I think we match up well as far as offensively. If our offense is clicking, I think we can do well there. We can score points, and hopefully we see that. Hopefully Tua is healthy and we have a offense clicking. But yeah, I think we can win this game. Definitely. We don't have it's a dome. We don't have it's late October. We don't have like a windy game or whatever. Like when we struggle. So I think this is definitely winnable, but I'm not as we need to look out for Bijan Robinson. We need to have a game plan for Bijan, and hopefully we have one. That's going to be on McDaniel and Weaver, right?
Yeah, I mean, where I kind of disagree with you is that when it comes to the run and the run stopping, I think we're built pretty well against that. If they have a plan for anything else, let me just put it this way. If their run game is not the only weapon that they got coming into the game, then, it would make me think different. But I don't believe that, right? I don't think Kyle Pitts and Michael Penix are going to be scary enough or linked enough to be able to create havoc down the middle with Pitts. And so, the defense could basically focus on Bijan and hopefully that'd be it. But, I mean, you could be right, especially because our second line defense, it's kind of shaky, including the linebackers. Willie Gay's looking good in mini camp, but again, that's just mini camp, but it's looking pretty good. So, we got Brooks. Safeties is up in the air with, Isaiah Campbell. So as long as we keep the run game from getting too far past into the second line, third line of defense, then we should be able to win this game.
I hope so, man. I just looked and he was third in the league after Saquon, and
yeah. So he, what, and like we were talking about earlier, I guess me and the Falcons, I haven't paid too much attention to the Falcons, I guess, because he kind of just flew under my radar. And I mean, I heard the name Bijan Robinson, but like I said, I is that would that be the only weapon, or Kyle Pitts and Michael Penix gonna link and have a great game? We'll see. I think we're winning this game. But again, going back to what we started off with is that none of these games are really 100% winnable, especially with the team that we got, the squad that we got putting out this season. Every game we have to come out because anybody could surprise us. This is the Dolphins. The Dolphins could lose to the worst team in the planet at any point. That's just the way we've been built for the last 2 decades. And I don't see anything else than that. So we have to be ready to perform. We have to have a great game plan to win games. So we talked about a lot today. We're going into an hour at this point, which is a little, it's almost like double the episode. But we talked about a lot, and we definitely want to hear what y'all think, especially from the first couple of topics that we covered this today. So, what do you guys think about the culture? Leave us some, get in the conversation. Is the culture going to change? Are you buying it? Are you buying Mike McDaniel's newfound toughness and grit coming out of the press? What do you think? Is paintball and slip and slide going to help these guys, get a better, connection with each other personally and fight for each other during the game? Let us know. So leave us a comment, smash that like, subscribe, get with the conversation. So Jules, you got anything to close out?
Yeah. I mean, get into the conversation. We would love to have, a community going. We can answer some, not really answer questions, but I think more of a conversation about what we're talking about, especially the culture change. I mean, that's a very interesting question. Is it going to happen? Do we have, are we confident that that's actually happening? The players, the coaches seem to agree with that stuff. They feel like there's a change coming, and I hope so, man. I'm trying to stay positive. The last couple of weeks we talked about these 8 games, and I feel like there's an opportunity here if we come out guns blazing like in 2023 with, the offense and the adjustments that McDaniel has to make compared to last year, because last year was a down year for this offense. We weren't as explosive. We weren't thrown to the outside guys. They're your playmakers as much as we were in 2023. Part of it was, Tua gone for 5-6 games or whatever that was. Yeah, of course. But in the games that he was there, I don't think there was a lot of opportunities to do that. I don't know if Tua was not making the right read or whatever. But if we do come back as the offense of 2023, I can't even talk. In 23, we should be, 7-1 maybe after these 8 games. Just thinking optimistically, right? More likely 5-3, right? I think that more realistically 5-3. But if the offense is clicking like it was in 2023, if we get back to that, and we have the players on offense that could do that, we have the explosiveness there, and we should be able to score some points. We should be able to win a lot of these games. So 5-3 to 7-1, somewhere in between is where we should be in order to be on track to get into the playoffs. If we are 3-5, 4-4 at this stage, there's going to be some questions out there, man. There's going to be some, fans feeling like, where was the culture change? Where was all this that we're talking about in mini camp and throughout the summer, right? So, yeah, man, this is it's going to be fun to see. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm trying to keep optimistic and wondering what you think about that.
Yeah, if it's a 3-5 situation, somebody needs to be getting fired. And maybe Ross, when when your people are not putting out their best foot forward, you got to let them go, man. You know what I mean? Specifically, Chris Greer. Yeah, I think he has gotten enough chances to put this team through to the next level. We're not talking about Super Bowl, even though the song says, we're talking Super Bowl. We're not talking Super Bowl. I'm just talking one playoff win. That's like the next level for the Dolphins. He has not been able to get us there, and I think he needs to go 3-5. That dude needs to go at least at the end of the season, get you another GM. But one last thing I wanted to touch on real quick to make this the full hour, and that's Tua and his comments regarding his, him just being tired of the situation that he's in, right? He said, aren't you tired of what's been happening? And I believe him. He's the only one I'm believing right now. Everybody else is kind of like, it's like their job, right? It's kind of like, it's just a gig. I feel like a lot of the players, it's just a gig. And that's the mentality that I hate with a lot of pro players in every professional big league, MLB, NBA. It's a gig. What I want is those players that want it. I'm hoping that Tua, I think he's kind of been there, but I think he's seeing it even more. I think that fire is kind of coming up. Where when he said that, he's like, "Aren't you tired of what we've been doing?" And I believed him when he said that. I think he is actually tired, and that's why he's been asking his players, asking his his peers to hang out. To a point where, like he said, his wife is getting mad at him. Why are you hanging out with the boy so much? He wants to move past that and move past the same crap and move to the next level. And so I believe him, but it can't be only Tua. It's got to be many more players. Definitely the leaders in the team. They have to move from it's just a gig, showing up to practice, to just making it. I mean, you just got to have that dog mentality. You just got to go out there and want to get better at every single facet of the game, no matter what it is, every inch of, whatever. You just got to pay attention, do everything you can to make everything about the game better, not only for you, but for the whole team. And I just want to say that Tua, I think, has kind of reached that point, and he's ready to move forward. And I hope he can stay on the field. I think he could do good. But yeah, again, right before we go, subscribe, get with the conversation. Let us know what you think about these topics. Let us know about what you think about the second quarter of the schedule. Culture change for sure. That's a big topic right now. Are you buying it? What do they need to do to actually, have a culture change within this team, within the whole organization. And yeah, let us know, and hope that you guys had fun listening. And we hope to have you guys on and listening for the next episode when we cover quarter 3 of the schedule and whatever else has happened during that week that we'll talk about, which shouldn't be much because mini camp's over, but I'm sure there's going to be some happenings here and there as far as, some of the trades and some of the whispers that go on with all that situation with both Johnny Smith and Jalen Ramsey. And then also some of the other guys from other teams that are leaving their teams, like Jair Alexander. And, I can't think of the other guys, but yeah, that could be also topics that we may cover next. So again, appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great Father's Day or had a great Father's Day. Shout out to all the fathers out there, and fins up. Hope to see you next time.
Fins up.